What's going on, guys? It's your boy LOZA. Today we're looking at my tier list for 2022 Dark Magician cards. Now, of course, I've been looking forward to making this, and a lot of people were suggesting it in the comments. We're going to start off with the top tier, the SS tier, as I like to call it. And it is just going to have our boy Dragoon. I don't think there needs to be much more said. This card is amazing. It makes our deck have like a purpose. Some decks can't out this card. Sky Striker, for example, struggle. Live Twin struggle. There's a couple of other decks that just don't really have a way out. We do lose to Droplet, Dark Ruler no more, Zeus. But aside from those things, we do have a pretty strong boss monster, so I will not complain. With a lot of people moving on to destroy Phoenix Enforcer, I just feel like this is our boss monster once again. Like, no one else is really playing it anymore, and that's a nice feeling. Let's move on to the S tier. These are cards that either get us going just by themselves, or just a really, really strong card. The strong card here is the Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight. Now, it's a more control-based card for when you're just playing a lot of the generic back row, like Circle, Eternal Soul, and whatever else you might play Floodgate-wise or Disruption-wise. The reason he's S tier and not higher and not lower is because when he's on the field with the Circle and Eternal Soul lock, he is S tier. He's not quite as good as Dragoon. The problem is we don't have a way to summon him efficiently, not till Branded Fusion. I'm still going to put him in S tier, but like, I barely summon this card. It just sucks that we haven't had a way to turbo it out. Like, if we did have a Dark Magician Fusion spell that's sent from deck, that could help. Konami don't want us to have that. They're like, here's secrets, here's Timaeus again. And it's worse than secrets. But anyway, we'll get to that later. Next card here is, of course, Illusion of Chaos. Illusion of Chaos is one of the best cards we've ever received. I don't think that's a controversial take. Everyone knows it's a good card. I see some people not playing it at 3, and that is most strange to me. Like, you play your Rod at 3, you play your Souls at 3, this gets them. You'd play it at 3, along with 3 Prep. I don't have the Prep there, but you could figure that you'd play Prep with it. So yeah, it's an amazing card, and actually lets us search Apprentice Illusion Magician and the Timaeus monster later, so that could be relevant, but for now you're mainly going to grab Rod or Souls. So moving on, Magician's Rod, one of our best cards. It's our searcher that we need to normal summon. We can search it off Illusion of Chaos, which will be very, very handy coming 2022, but it's still a 3 of. We may play a new normal summon. There's been a bit of experimentation in the Dark Magician Discord of Diviner and also just Manju, like to search Illusion of Chaos. That stuff's cool. I don't know if we'll play that. Like, Rod is still probably the better option, at least, or at least it's more traditional to Dark Magician. So I'm just going to keep Rod up here. I do think Rod is an S tier card. Sadly, it doesn't get us going yet. It gets us by itself with Artemis. It can search Soul Servant and set you up next turn for Anaconda Dragoon by stacking Magician Souls off the Soul Servant and tributing the Artemis and grabbing Rod back from grave. So that's great. It's a little slow, but it's great. And if you play powerful hand traps or just disruption cards or floodgates that can stop your opponent from OTKing you, you can hopefully play next turn. And that's what's important about Rod. It's a really good card for playing again next turn. It has that recursion, and it can also just start your engine sometimes. Sometimes you just need the Circle or the Eternal Soul. It can grab you that missing piece. Sad thing is, everything Rod searches still needs Dark Magician somewhere to be effective. For example, Rod's going to grab Circle or Eternal Soul or Soul Servant or Magician Salvation. Like, all of those cards still need other cards to function, but that is the underlying theme of Dark Magician. Friends are our power, and we need like 13 cards to do anything. But that's okay. I still think Rod is one of our better cards, so I will put it in the S tier category. Anyway, Upstart Goblin, after playing this card in tournament and testing with it thoroughly, thanks to Matt, Upstart just has a place in this deck, guys. It is just such a good card. Not to mention, like, when you are siding, it's such an easy card to just side out, right? It's a free slot, essentially. Upstart is so good out of deck because we have Magician's Rod that can search you Soul Servant or Circle, and both of those cards stack. If you open Upstart Soul Servant and no other monsters, you're like, wow, how do I get to Anaconda? Well, you can go Upstart, your opponent will not ash it because it's Upstart, chain Soul Servant, stack Magician Souls. Magician Souls will then be drawn. You will use Magician Souls, sending Mana or Dark Magician Go, whatever you're playing. Then you can banish Soul Servant and draw 1. That's pretty damn good. You've got yourself to 1 body on the field, so if you can just get to 1 more normal summon, from there you can go Anaconda Dragoon. Other than that, Upstart is always just going to replace itself. So if there's a scenario that comes up with Upstart where you don't have a card to stack, that's fine. It's Upstart. It's always just going to draw you a card. Like, it's fine. The only time it's bad is like near time, but it's a whole nother story. Let's get on to my controversial pick. Based on my last video, I don't think it's a big surprise. 3 Red Eyes Fusion is always essential to me, and Red Eyes Fusion is an S tier card here. While it's not necessarily Dark Magician. I am going to adopt it just like I'm adopting Upstart and say, it's our card, alright? It works too well in our deck for it to not be our card, so it's our card. Big thank Red Eyes. Looking at the A tier, we've got Magician Souls and Soul Servant. You know what, Rod maybe should be down here with them in A. Maybe that's true. Soul Servant and Magician Souls are both very good cards. They sadly do rely a little bit too much on other cards to function, normally Dark Magician, or Dark Magician in the graveyard, or a spell or trap that involves Dark Magician. So unfortunately that theme is once again hurting us. Magician Souls isn't a one card anything, it's a one card summon Dark Magician. That's relevant sometimes. Soul Servant by itself just stacks the deck. It's not that great, but obviously comboed with Bricks in the Grave, Soul Servant can become Pot of Greed. So it has very high potential, but if you draw it in your opening hand with no ways to dump Dark Magician, DMG, or mana, it's a bit of a yikes card. I'll admit it's a bit of a yikes card. But it's still one of our best cards. Like, it's a card that lets us draw two most of the time. I do hope one day we get a fusion of the Palladium monsters, or a fusion that involves Mana, Mahar, Dark Magician, and Dark Magician Girl, and we have a fusion spell that sends all of them to grave for the fusion summon. And then we'd have all four in grave, we would then be able to banish Soul Servant and draw four. That's probably our only hope of being meta relevant, I'm going to be honest, like having something crazy like a draw 4. We do have it now, but it's just there's no way to get to it like turn 1. I have managed to get Soul Servant to draw me 3 going first, but it's not that consistent, and it involves you having to open one of the brick pieces, so like you don't want that. Maybe one day Soul Servant will be absolutely busted. It's still one of our best cards, so let's go Soul Servant. Magician Souls also has that reprint now, so you should be able to pick it up, should be a little cheaper, so hell yeah. B tier. B tier has some of the classic Dark Magician cards like Eternal Soul, like Circle, like the Dark Magicians, Secrets, Timaeus 2, and Magician Salvation. Now what does everything in B tier have in common? It doesn't do anything without something else. I hate to repeat myself, but that is the literal personality of this deck. That is the entire archetype. Magician Salvation is a great addition to the deck for deck thinning and then sending it with Magician Souls to get a draw. I do like that aspect, but I just think it could have been a lot better. And I guess that's what all the B tier cards are. B tier are cards that should have been better. I'll go through them one by one. I did Magician Salvation, so we'll work backwards from there. Timaeus, the Legendary Dragon of Destiny or something. To me, it's a worse Secrets. It's Secrets, but it needs a discard or something to get on the field first. Like, I know you could tribute Salvation or send Salvation, for example, which is a pretty good use of Salvation and Timaeus' effect. But then on field, you need to activate its effect to fusion summon. That is bad. That's not good, because a lot of people, especially this format, and probably leading into next year, will be playing Effect Veiler, Imperm, and Cyframe Gamma. They are pretty common hand traps, mainly Imperm and Veiler, but Gamma too. And if you happen to run into any of those, well, you're not fusion summoning, and you lost a card to get this on the field. So I don't want to pass to my opponent on a 2800 attack dragon. So anyway, Timaeus to me is a little bit underwhelming. It could have been a lot better. For a card coming out in 2022, you'd expect it to like fusion summon from your deck, to do it for cost, to do it without needing a discard. But of course, that would be pretty broken. But you see what I'm saying. We do need a better fusion card than Timaeus. Let's move on to Secrets. A lot of people know I don't like Secrets, and that's because I do believe it's just an old-fashioned fusion spell. It's a fusion spell we should have got in like 2006, for example. It's pretty much an in-archetype polymerization. Yes, it's quick play. It has to use Dark Magician or Dark Magician God of Fuse, which is just terrible. And on top of that, it doesn't have any other effect. Like, yeah, it can Ritual Summon as well, whoop-de-doo. Maybe we will find a combo that helps us Ritual Summon out Illusion of Chaos, because its on-field effect is okay, but for now we're mainly just going to use Illusion of Chaos for the hand effect. Secrets doesn't really have a nice place in the deck, and if it does, it's a 1. That's the thing. And you don't really want to draw it. Sometimes you do, but you normally want to search it off Rod. It's such a weird card. Like, there are scenarios where you have a brick hand and people are like, oh, Secrets will fix that. And it's like, why would I want to play like a subpar fusion spell that's kind of a brick to fix a brick hand, you know? It's like playing more bricks to fix bricks. I hate that. So this moves on directly to the Dark Magicians. One of the most overhyped cards in Dark Magician. Not that it's hyped up, but a lot of people play it and tell me like, oh, it's so good, like, why don't you play it? And I'm like, this card literally has Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl in the artwork, and yet it does not identify as either of them on the field or graveyard, which is a hate crime, frankly. But it also, its effects are just so lackluster. Like, To summon this, you're going to either use Magicalized Fusion, which means you're banishing DMG or DM, which is bad because then your Soul Servant's not live and your Eternal Soul might not be live. Or you're using Secrets of Dark Magic, which means you're going neg-3. You're using Secrets plus a Dark Magician or DMG plus another Spellcaster. That's 3 cards to get this out. Then you need to play another spell or trap effect from somewhere, and then you can draw a card. To me, that's a lot of rooting around to get like 1 draw. I know it's a body on the field that floats into stuff, but relying on floating into things in 2022 is not good, guys. I guess my problem with Secrets and the Dark Magicians is we don't have a way to get to it. Kind of like Dark Magician the Dragon Knight. We just don't have a way to summon it quick enough or resourceful enough. We can't summon it in an effective manner, similar to the way, say, Invoked would summon a fusion and then add Alistair back to hand, and they've actually lost no cards from doing it. If we were to apply the same concept to Secrets and the Dark Magicians, it's just not even comparable. We use 3 cards to get the Dark Magicians out, then we need to play another one, and then suddenly we can draw a card. So we've lost 3, we've played another, and we've drawn 1. We're neg-3, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we got a body on the board, so we're like kind of neg-2, but it's not a body that does anything on the opponent's turn. I know it can draw you a card on the opponent's turn, but I'm talking about like negate, disruption, something to mess with them. And yes, I know it could draw like a Solemn Strike and then set it, but that then relies on you playing traps and stuff for going first. And yes, it floats into Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl. I don't think that's that relevant. People can negate that. People won't care. Like, they'll just access code pop Dark Magicians. You'll go effect, summon Dark Magician Girl. They'll go, okay. You'll summon them out, and then they'll just go access code effect, pop it again, access code effect, pop it again. Like, of course, if Eternal Soul's there, it's a different story, but they can just swing into Dark Magician once again. So I'm just overall disappointed by the Dark Magicians and Secrets and Timaeus and Salvation, to be honest. They all just could have been better. Do I think they're okay to play at 1? Yes. Playing them at 1, fine. I don't think they deserve any more than that. It's 1 or none, and I will stick by that. The top end of B tier, we've got Circle and Eternal Soul. Now, I will say these cards are okay. Notice I said okay. Everyone else in the Dark Magician profile says they're broken, they're amazing, they're great. No, they're just okay. Circle is the worst of the two. Circle either needs to add Dark Magician monsters, or it needs to just always hit. And we just don't have enough cards to play for it to always hit. So, unfortunately, it's in this spot where you need to open it with Soul Servant, or it's just a bad card. So that's why I played in 1 in a lot of my lists, but playing it in 2 I think is the perfect number. Eternal Soul's in a similar boat, but I do think it's a little better. And the reason I think Eternal Soul is better is because if you establish Anaconda Dragoon, and you have the choice of going for 1 Dark Magician spell trap, like stacking it with your Soul Servant, for example, 90% of the time you're going to go for Eternal Soul through Salvation, because on your opponent's turn you can flip that Eternal Soul, summon Dark Magician, tribute the Dark Magician, and add Rod back to hand with Rod's effect. That's normally what you want to go for over adding Circle, playing Circle, and praying you hit Eternal Soul. You could do that. You could just pray you hit Salvation or Eternal Soul, but it's nowhere near as consistent. I would just rather, I'll go for Salvation or Eternal Soul and just make sure I get Rod back next turn. That's way more consistent in my opinion. So I will have Eternal Soul higher than Circle. Yes, Eternal Soul nukes the board when it leaves, but we play Dragoon. It's not the biggest deal. If we could summon Dark Magician the Dragon Knight more consistently, yeah, I would be playing Circle and Eternal Soul probably at 2 all the time in all my builds. But because we Turbo Dragoon instead, I'm not that phased. I think Circle and Eternal Soul are absolutely fine at 1. They're fine at 2, but 3. 3's where I draw the line. I see people played at 3 and I'm like, look, you really don't need to. If you open multiples of those cards, it is so bad. Like, you do not understand how bad it is unless you have played this deck. It is fucking horrendous. You got to take a look at some other decks, for example, and see what they play some of their super searchable cards at. Like, for example, Shadows play their Schism at 1 or 2, and Schism is one of their best cards, right? But kind of the same concept. They don't really want to open it. So they have so many ways to search it, there's no point playing more than 2. So they either play 1 or they play 2. And I think I apply that logic to Eternal Soul and Circle because they are much worse cards than Shadow Schism in my opinion, and I think that's not a controversial take. I'm pretty sure everyone would agree. So why would we play these at 3, right, if they're worse cards than Schism, for example? So yeah. Anyway, long story short, every card in B tier just isn't quite it, you know? It's okay, but it needs another card or 2 to get rolling, and that's kind of an issue. Alright, we're going another step down, the C tier. Now, C tier is kind of in the same boat. Apprentice Illusion Magician not only needs a discard, but she then wants to add Dark Magician, which is okay, that's fine. She is an extender, and she grabs you Dark Magician. The problem with her now is we've kind of moved away from navigation. Well, not kind of, we have. Anyone playing Navi is kind of in the past. So Navi doesn't really exist anymore in our builds, and adding Dark Magician to the hand doesn't really matter. We're going to be sending it off Red Eye's Fusion most of the time. And we're going to have another one that we might use with Magician Souls, for example. So Apprentice doesn't really have a role in the deck, though because her and Timaeus are searchable off Illusion of Chaos, which I want to play at 3 with 3 prep, I think playing one Apprentice is actually a good number moving forward. So she could be in the B tier, but I put her in the C tier because she just doesn't have a place to fit in right now. And the main reason you would add her off Illusion of Chaos is if your opening hand had Rod, Souls, and Illusion of Chaos. Because then you're like, well, I've already got Rod, Souls, what's Illusion of Chaos getting? Well, he can get you Timaeus, he can get you Apprentice, he can get you like that little Karibo that we're definitely not going to play. I might play it at some point, it's pretty cute, but it's not very good, and it's not making it on the tier list. But anyway, back to Apprentice. She was a good card when she came out. Don't get me wrong, but she hasn't aged well, let's just say that. She's kind of trash now. I don't mind if you play her, but there's definitely better options, is what I'm saying. Magician's Combination is a weird one. Is another card that wants to force us to play Dark Magician Girl, similar to Magician's Salvation, similar to the Dark Magicians. They're trying to enforce Dark Magician playing the Dark Magician Girl. It makes sense, they're trying to make us all play like Yu-Gi-Moto, but the problem with that is Magician's Combination needs Dark Magician Girl in the grave, or Dark Magician, and then they swap, and then you get the negate. I believe that's how it works. I've used it before. It's not a bad negate card, and it does have the effect where if it's popped, it gets to pop something, I believe, in return. That's all good, but the problem is, it should have summoned Dark Magician Girl or Dark Magician from the deck. Like, it should have swapped from... It should have been a little bit more generic and been like graveyard, deck, hand, field. That sounds a little bit too easy, but if they want to get us to play a card like this that helps us negate the opponent, great, but they need to make it a little more accessible to our deck. It's not going to get abused in other decks. We just want to use it in our deck, so make it a little easier, right? I think they've got different card designers for Dark Magician cards. There's no way the same guy who made Red Eye's Dark Dragoon also made like Magician's Combination or Magician's Salvation. Like, the comparison is just wild, right? Anyway, Magician's Combination could be good in the future builds where we are forced to use Dark Magician Girl more, but for now it just sits in this weird limbo of needing a lot of other cards to be useful, so it's a little worse than the B tier cards, I want to say. D tier cards. Now, some of these cards, to be honest, are like okay, but they also are just old, and that's kind of the problem. They're outdated now, they're outclassed, or they're just very bricky. So we'll start with Navigation. Navigation is an old favorite of mine. The graveyard effect of Navigation is so amazing, and your opponents never remember that you have a spell trap negation in your graveyard, so it's crazy good. Problem is we just can't play it anymore. We don't have cards that mill spell trap from deck to grave. If we did, we might play it at 1, but we just don't. Playing Foolish Burial Goods or something like as a package could be okay. I know players have experimented with that, but I just think it's a waste. I guess the underlying thing is Magician's Navigation is amazing in Duel Links, so if you want to use it, go play it there. It's literally on the ban list, that's how good it is there. Dark Magic Inheritance seems to be what the deck wanted to do a while ago. It was like, hey, we've got a second version of Rod, but it's a spell, but you need to banish 2 spells to use it as like the cost. And we were like, great, this card's cool when it came out, because we played stuff like Allure, we played stuff like Pot of Desires, we played everything at 3, so like it didn't get banished. And it was fine then. I played one Apprentice, I played one Inheritance in my builds then, and it was fine. The problem with it is our next best spell we got was Soul Servant, and that card banishes itself to draw. We wouldn't ever want to banish it with Inheritance, so that's a problem. Not to mention our other main spell we use is Circle, which stays on the field. So you can see the Dark Magician support cards just contradict each other, and like they're definitely not made by the same people. And if they are, they're really trying to make Dark Magician like the Mario of Yu-Gi-Oh! They wanted to make it an all-rounder, they wanted to make it do everything but not do anything special, you know, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. So we get to Illusion Magic, and Illusion Magic's seen a little bit of play here and there because tributing your Rod or Souls to get a cheeky double Dark Magician in the hand used to be good, once again kind of with Navigation, but it's also good for dodging stuff like Impermanent Effect Veiler. It doesn't dodge Ash or Gamma, but it is really useful for just, you know, removing. It is really good for just random builds that needed to accelerate into Dark Magician, so pretty much older Dark Magician builds. Fortunately, that card just doesn't really need to be played anymore. Once again, we don't want Dark Magician in the hand anymore. Similar to Apprentice, it's just lost relevance. We send Dark Magician to the grave through Magician Souls or through Red Eyes Fusion now, so you can see that a lot of our support is just outdated. Bond between Teacher and Student and Dark Burning Magic and Dark Magic Attack, I'm kind of going to group these together. So Bond between Teacher and Student can get you to Dark Burning Magic, but I feel like that play is just not that great. Yeah, it's good going first, but going second, those cards aren't really going to do anything in your hand. They're going to get negated. It's going to be problematic and useless. I think the main problem is you need Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl on the field, and while that's possible nowadays more than it ever has been, it still just isn't worth it for the board nuke. I feel like you can just play better cards, and cards that aren't just going to sit in your hand and be bricks. So the underlining theme of Dark Magician is cards needing other cards to be valid, and that's these cards. The B tier cards, they needed one or two other cards to function, right? The D tier cards need one or two other cards just to exist, just to be played on the field. They're a lot worse. And here's a favorite of mine, Piercing the Darkness, the latest anime bait card, and you'll hear all casual Dark Magician players rave about how this card won them a game against their friend. Ooh, you beat Blue Eyes. Clap, clap. So yeah, I guess that's the problem with this card. People are like, oh, you get to draw one. It's like, yeah, yes, but you played the card down. Then you had to summon a vanilla. Then you drew one. You're not going plus. Just play Upstart, bro. It's way better. Piercing the Darkness is bad for multiple reasons. 1, it's unsearchable. 2, if it was, we probably would just play 1. 3, the attack boost isn't that necessary. Dracoon just pops shit and then swings, and it's on 4K if you've done a negate. It's not that necessary. 4, I've got nothing left, but it's just an anime bait card, and I hate that. It reminds me of Eye of Timaeus and how that used to bait people to play it just because, haha, anime cards. So I'm going to chuck it in that same boat. I'm going to show you the E and F tier together because they are the mandatory bricks or engine requirements, if you will, that we have to play. And yes, Dark Magician is in the F tier. If that upsets you, I don't know, man. You're not Yugi. This isn't the anime. Dark Magician in your hand doesn't actually do anything. Compare the cards in F tier and E tier to the cards in S tier. If you saw Upstart in your hand, if you saw Red Eyes Fusion in your hand, if you saw Rod in your hand, you'd be having a great time. If you saw any of the bottom row in your hand, you'd be like, ruh-roh. Obviously, if you saw Dark Magician, Dragon Knight in your hand, you'd get a judge call, but alas. One can dream. So anyway, you'll notice Mana's in the E tier, and that's because I do believe she is a slight fraction above the other 3 bricks. Now, of course, we have to play Dark Magician, so he'll always be there. But your choice of the second brick, whether it be Dark Magician Girl, Mana, or Mahad, I honestly don't care. All those cards are so bad. Mahad, Mana, and DMG are all just so terrible. Just go off. Pick whichever one you want. I honestly will not even roast people for it anymore. I'll probably roast you if you have all of them. But if you just have Dark Magician with any of the other 3, that's fine. We do want to get the draw 2 of Soul Servant. So I understand that. We always should be playing 2 of the bricks, in my opinion. The draw 2 is too good. I do think Mana just has that slight edge because she can summon herself, which means she can extend into Anaconda. It has come up a couple of times for me. It doesn't come up all the time, but I guess that's the other side of the spectrum. If it was Dark Magician Girl or Mahad I put in the graveyard or had in my hand, they wouldn't be doing anything. So at least Mana does something. Doing the bare minimum is better than doing nothing. But as I said, a lot of the other Dark Magician cards we've started getting are very much forcing us or want to push us down the path of playing Dark Magician Girl. And I think that's okay, but I'm not playing her yet. I thought it might be time to start playing her, but I still think Mana's just better. And until we get a card that really solidifies playing Dark Magician Girl, I'm not going to play her just yet. I have played her in the past, don't get me wrong. I just hate seeing her in the hand. At least Mana sometimes comes out to the field. Yeah, she should probably negate stuff. It was kind of a wasted opportunity, but she at least can summon herself. So yeah, that's my Dark Magician tier list with my in-depth explanation. Hopefully this video didn't go too long. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe as we move into 2022. We'll be looking at all of the new Dark Magician support as it comes out, and hopefully making some awesome combos. Anyway, I'm your boy LOZA, and I'll catch you soon. Peace.